much, John.
Thanks.
I'll wait for you to tell me we can go. Okay. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Resources, Fire and Rescue Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It's a pleasure to see you all. I hope you are all staying safe and well. Item number 1 on the agenda. John, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, apologies from Councillor O'Rourke, and Cashel Burler has also sent her apologies.
Thank you, John. Hopefully Maggie will be able to join us shortly. Okay. Do we have any members' declarations of interest? No?
Yes, can I declare an interest in as a member of Royal Leamington Spa Town Council who have commented on the IRMP?
Thank you very much, Sarah. Do you want a dispensation on that as well? You'll be staying and commenting, I'm sure.
I don't think I need a dispensation, no.
You don't, so you're quite happy to. Okay, that's fine.
I don't think the views of Leamington Town Council are going to sway what the outcome.
You never know, Sarah. You never know. It depends what you've said. Well, right. Next item. I haven't got any announcements today. The meetings of the previous meeting has been circulated. Are we all happy that they are adopted?
Move it, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cook. All happy with that? Excellent, thank you. Right, public question time. Do we have any questions that have been put forward, John?
No, Chair, no questions.
Okay, right, thank you very much. Right, now with the agreement of the Chair and Spokes and the Vice Chair, so thank you very much Sarah and Maggie and Parminder for this, we're going to move the agenda around a little bit. Our fire officers are in meetings this afternoon for their inspections, so we're going to bring forward items 7 and 8 to be the next 2 items on the agenda. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah. Yep, brilliant. Okay. Right, so we'll pass over to item 7. I think, Ben, you're presenting this for us this afternoon. Before you do, and I'm sure everybody else is going to chip in and say exactly the same, can we thank and congratulate the fire service for the report on your COVID report? We are incredibly impressed and incredibly grateful to our fabulous fire service, and I'm sure the committee will all echo that comment. So thank you, guys and ladies, for what you're doing. Okay, Ben, would you like to present item 7 for us?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be with you here this afternoon. I'm going to report, first of all, on the COVID-19 inspection report. And it's important to say to start with that it's quite easy to get confused about which inspection we're talking about, because we're currently going through a full inspection. So this paper is specifically referenced the COVID-19 specific inspection that took place between the 28th of September and the 9th of October last year. Also like to say that there's no grading attached to this particular inspection report. It's a narrative on areas of strength and areas for future focus. So due to there being no grading, we can't compare ourselves directly to other fire and rescue services, but it's clear throughout the inspection report that we were recognised for our excellent service to the communities of Warwickshire during COVID-19. We provided services that were over and above the national agreements, the National Tripartite Agreement, which is an agreement between the Fire Brigades Union, the National Fire Chiefs Council and the employers. An example of us going over and above was the expansion of our hospital to home initiative, which freed up hospital beds during the critical time period of COVID-19. We were also willing and able to deliver a wide range of activities if needed during the COVID-19 pandemic. So overall, Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabularies and Fire and Rescue Service were impressed with how Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service maintained its statutory functions and supported the community during the pandemic. We should be rightly proud, as the Chair said at the start there, of this assessment, but we in Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service recognise that we were a part of the response in partnership with the wider Warwickshire County Council teams, with Warwickshire Police, with Public Health England, with the NHS. And this report focuses on the inspection of Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service. But we believe together, in partnership in Warwickshire, we made a difference during the pandemic to the communities of Warwickshire. There are 4 areas of focus within the report, future focus. And it's important to say that we've already acted upon all of those areas of future focus and taken action to make sure we are providing the best possible service to the communities of Warwickshire. So now I'd like to open up to any questions on the report.
Hello?
Adrian?
Can you hear? Sorry, my internet just dropped out. I'm waiting for a second visit from OpenReach. I'm incredibly sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed that. We've got 3 indicated speakers. John, I think you're first. John Cook.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, Chairman, that I'm very impressed by the report. What I would like to say, during this last week, 10 days, I have been going around to all my different parish councils, and I have put in my report the details about this inspection, and I'm happy to tell you at each of those meetings they were very impressed and welcomed it. So I thought it was only right and proper that I should pass that on at this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Judy, you're next.
Thank you. Yeah, I've sung your praises at town council meetings recently, but are we surprised? No, because we've known for certainly all the time I've been on the council, which isn't a fraction what Sarah has, how good our fire and rescue service are, and that they've always done more than just fire and rescue. It's very much about prevention and rather than cure. So I wasn't surprised at all to see it, which sounds a bit flat, but incredible report. We knew we'd get this, didn't we? In fact, we're probably brimming with ideas of what more we can do in partnership, and I'm really pleased to see that we've got a force which is not reactive to what's happening, but actually thinking about what might happen and moving on from there. So I think it's an excellent report, and long may we not just be a fire and rescue service. Let us be, as you said, Ben, a partnership organisation as part of Warwickshire and County Council. So thank you all. Well deserved.
Thank you, Judy. Sarah, you indicated next.
No, actually, not. I don't want to start off the meeting in a picky mood, but actually, I was the first to indicate. And if you look at in the chat to the participants, it shows you, Adrian, the order in which people actually put their hands up. So the person
Sarah,
at the top,
whether it's because I dropped out, it was the order that the hands were up. Sorry.
I'm not going to be picky, but it's a useful tool to know.
I hate to think what you'd be like if you were being picky.
Oh, I can be worse. I can be worse. I mean, can I be with everybody else? This is a really, really good report. I mean, it would be really interesting to look at, others and see the sort of points that were being picked up in there. I mean, it's interesting. Some of the areas for that were seen to be items for future focus, which is quite a diplomatic way of putting it, I guess. But I think there's some quite interesting points in there. I mean, some of the things that struck me in the report, I probably won't be able to find it again now. There was one around furlough and how you'd had to sort of negotiate, and you picked up this thing that people who were furloughed couldn't potentially act as retained firefighters. And I thought, that struck me as a really good point of how on the ball you were to pick that up straight away and to bring it to the attention nationally. So I was very, very impressed with that, because furlough was a new thing, wasn't it? We probably never heard the word furlough more than 12 months ago, and so that was really, really good. I just had one question. Some interesting points in point 64 on page 61 around the Fire and Rescue Authority. Now, obviously, every single county councillor is part of the Fire and Rescue Authority, but I don't think, as individual members of that, all 57 members were not consulted on the things that are in 64 and 65, because it wouldn't have been practical in any sense or way of doing that. I mean, that clearly would have been absurd. And I would imagine the portfolio holder is the main person that would have been involved in that. But I just wondered if you had any thoughts on how you would manage that, or how that will be better portrayed or managed, so that you did actually make sure that all members of the Fire Authority were, I hesitate to use the word involved because that doesn't sound quite right. That's the last thing I want to do is to come across as a criticism, but I'm just really highlighting the fact that, you know, if we combined authorities like Hereford and Worcester, for example, you'd have a very small board with representatives from all the different councils that you could consult with. It's not practical for you to consult with 57 members, and I just wondered whether you've got any thoughts on that.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I've got Andy indicated next, but Kieran has indicated, so probably best we take Kieran first, if that's all right.
Thank you, Chairman. And just thanks very much for all the observations and recognition you've given us from this report. But we really welcome those areas where, you know, we're looking for the future improvements as well in this report. It is vital for us because we absolutely mean what we say when we put ourselves forward as an improving organisation and a learning organisation. And I think on the point that Councillor Bowe made, I think this is the correct forum for that broader level of engagement. We've got cross-party representation here. I think the way in which this forum is chaired allows us to really dig deep and scrutinise key areas of what we're proposing in any reports that come in around the Fire Rescue Service. And then in addition, of course, we've got the IRMP Assurance Panel as well. So we've got steady state, everything should be driven by our integrated risk management plan. So we've got high degrees of scrutiny over that. And then for anything that's over and above that and these key reports coming in, I think for me, this scrutiny committee would be the right forum for that, and your representatives then of respective parties that do represent the whole Fire Authority, which is the full council.
Thank you, Kieran. Andy, before I bring you in, Andy Jens has indicated, so if Andy wants to come in first, and then we'll let the portfolio holder round off.
Yeah, just a quick one, Chair. It's interesting that the staff absence actually fell compared with the previous year, but did we have much absence either due to COVID or self-isolating during that period?
Yeah, if I may, Chairman.
Yes.
So I think in the early stages, Councillor Jones, we definitely had quite a few worried well. There was a lot of inconsistent information and data around COVID at that stage. And quite rightly, we were encouraging our staff to take time out if they felt that they were suffering from any kind of virus to keep our bubble secure. So Barnaby came up with a really great regime for us to lock down each individual station and manage the numbers within those stations individually. So we thought that was the right way of doing it. So we did see a slight spike early on, but because obviously we had the furloughing and unfortunately some redundancies within our on-call staff, we had this significant increase in the availability our amazing on-call people were able to offer us. And then the point that Councillor Bowe made around the furloughing arrangement at a national level, again, our staff were really quick to recognise some of the challenges that were going on, feeding that back to us. And we were the first fire service to raise this for the Home Office and the National Fire Chiefs Council. And I have to say, take my hats off to both of those different organisations. So National Fire Chiefs Council and Home Office really sprung into action off the back of that. And within the space of about 72 hours, they resolved that whole issue with HMRC, Department of Work and Pensions, and we actually managed to get the correct guidance out around the primary employment for our on-call staff and how that was impacting upon their on-call availability. So throughout the whole kind of period, the numbers have been really quite low comparatively with other organisations, but I take my hat off to the team and how they managed that at the local level.
Thank you, Kieran. Okay, can we bring in the portfolio holder to round off, please? You're on mute, Andy.
Oh, I just came out with a really good line then as well. They say they normally save the best to last, but in this case, there's the exception that proves the rule. Yeah, lots of great points there. Obviously, it's really great that we were a national lead on the furlough situation. Obviously helps I'm a tight accountant as a portfolio holder. So Mr. Amos is also picking up my puns, but he's also picking up my financial tightness as well. So he's rubbing off really positive. Certainly the firefighters are a part, and the accounting also a great part of the community. And for them, I can say it's a vocation. It's not a job. And Mr. Amos and Mr. Brook haven't pointed out something that I think we should hopefully congratulate and have minuted, if that's all right with you, Mr. Chairman. That Henley and Arden, I went to a presentation there, a socially distanced one the other week, where they had 24/7, 365 days a year availability for 2 years running, which is absolutely unheard of. So if we could congratulate them, that would be great, and have that minuted, please. I would be most grateful. Yeah, it's really positive, this COVID result, and it just shows how well the officers have worked, that we've got such a positive outcome, even when I was interviewed. So hopefully I didn't put my foot in it too much with the COVID inspection, and the great job of the officers to pull my feet out the fire, as they say on this one, and get a great result. So very impressive. And Mr. Chairman, if you could minute that, ask the committee if they'd be willing to minute those thanks, I will be most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I'm sure we can. John, if we could add that note on. Well, yes. The report is for noting, but can I suggest that we both note the report and record our gratitude and congratulations to the fire service for this report, because I think it's something to be incredibly proud of. So is everybody happy we change the recommendation to that? Councillor Bode is going to second that, and we're all in favour. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we move on to item number 8. And item number 8 is the IRMP, and I believe that Ben and Aid are going to be presenting this for us. So which one would like to start?
Yeah, I'll give an outline, Chair, and then Aid has done significant amounts of work here and his team, so a big thank you to them, and I'm sure Aid will be able to put in some of the detail. So under the National Framework Document for Foreign Rescue Services in England, each foreign rescue service must have an integrated risk management plan that is regularly reviewed and consulted upon with their communities and partners. So Warwickshire Foreign Rescue Service, on behalf of the Fire Authority, prepared a draft integrated risk management plan that is based upon significant risk analysis that Aid and his team have undertaken, which includes 5 proposals. Those proposals are to ensure that our workforce and ethos reflects the diverse communities we serve, to assess our capabilities to improve our ways of working in response to any future pandemics, to assess our overall resource capacity to ensure that our personnel and physical assets are in the right place at the right time to deliver our statutory duties, to develop further opportunities to support the wider community's health outcomes and to help protect social care and the NHS, and to implement digital solutions to enhance service delivery. So this report is to note the outcome of the consultation on those 5 proposals. Now, it should be noted that we had a large response to the consultation through social media interest, and the consultation responses we received were higher than in any previous RMP consultation. We also had a diverse range of views from our communities. The majority of the respondents agreed with the proposals and felt they were important to them. These 5 proposals are being used to create an action plan for the next 12 months on the services that we will provide to the communities of Warwickshire. So finally, just a big thank you to Aid Malaban and his team for preparing the risk analysis and the RMP, and the huge amount of work that goes into consulting with our communities that is so important.
Thank you very much. Right, Andy, your hand's up. Is that a legacy hand?
Sorry, it's a legacy hand.
That's a legacy hand. Okay. Right, I haven't got any indicated speakers on this as yet. Does anybody want to comment? Judy, and Sarah's waving as well. Judy first and then Sarah.
Thank you. I'm just interested in the proposal 5 about digital solutions. And excuse me, I'm just wondering, you've got issues for live video links and incidents. I just wondered, do they work in rural areas? I know we have a problem with reception in rural areas, and I just wondered if anybody done any.
Judy, every time you turn your head, I completely lose what you're saying. So
Is that better, Sarah?
that's better, yes.
Right.
I completely missed the first part of your question because you had your head turned away.
Proposal 5 about digital implementation, doing live video links and incidents, and I just wondered how it would work in rural areas, because we know our broadband, etc., isn't as good in rural areas. I just wondered whether you've done any incidents in a rural area and tried it.
Good question, Judy. I don't know who's going to take that, but I'll back you up on the broadband in the rural areas. Who would like to answer that?
I'm happy to pick up that, and then I'm sure others can chip in admirably. So the live information is actually a feed that's linked to our fire appliances. It's Auto Vehicle Location System, AVLS, and that'll be linked into our mobilising systems. You're quite right, Councillor Falk, that sometimes that signal does drop out, but it's part of what will soon to be the emergency services network. Currently it's Airway, so shared by all the emergency services, and the coverage for that is second to none, particularly because obviously the coverage required for emergency services needs to cover the predominance of our conurbations. As I say, a few areas where it might drop out, but in the main, we understand the incidents that we've attached our resources to, so we can still, we can make that assumption that appliances that have booked into an incident, that gives us the committed resource, and then that reshapes the available resources across the county. And then further technology that we're using around physical recording out the incident with cameras and new devices as well. That will be a slower time feed at the moment, but possibly with live downlinks from drone footage into our command units and into other suites. There's probably more information the team can offer around some of this, but that's my understanding.
Thank you, Kieran. Okay, I've got Sarah indicating next.
Thank you. I wanted to talk particularly about proposal 1 around the diverse communities that we serve. Now, it's interesting, if I might get the right bit of paper now, I think this was the one that had the biggest people against it, with 22% either disagreeing or strongly disagreeing with this. And I have to say, I am fairly gobsmacked at that. And I mean, I suppose you could look. We've got the breakdown of the people who responded. It is interesting. I don't think I'm sharing any secrets because it was done in a public meeting. But when we discussed this at the town council in Leamington, which, as you know, is a very diverse place, comments were made, and I won't say by who, as to the lack of diversity in the fire service and how the fire service weren't taking account of diversity. And I was able to, of course, put my fellow councillors right on that one, point out the work at Pride, point out huge things. And also the fact that if you're in a falling role situation, you can't make your workforce more diverse because you're actually losing people rather than being able to take them on. So Leamington Town Council were very fortunate to have me there to be able to explain all this to them. And the views that were expressed reflects that. But I'm really quite perturbed that this is the one that had the most opposition, because you would assume that people would want to see a fire service that reflected the diversity of the service. But I guess some parts of our county are, and I guess probably when people say diversity, they're probably thinking mainly ethnicity rather than anything else. And it may be that you had more responses from very white parts of the county. But I was concerned to see this. It seemed particularly stark. that people were reacting badly. And I guess, I don't know, either people are not happy with diversity, or they don't understand what it means, or they don't understand what it is that we will be doing to make the service more diverse. The only other point was, as I understand it now, once this has been agreed, I'm presuming it will go back. It's been agreed by Cabinet, hasn't it? So what happens? So this goes to full council presumably next week. Is that right? And then we've got this panel. So will it then come back to the panel after that? Is that the way around it's going to work? Thank you.
I believe so, Sarah. I believe that's the case. Kieran, I think you want to come back in and comment on that before I bring Dave in.
Thank you, Chairman, if I may. Last point first, absolutely, it'll go to the assurance panel, and I think each key stage then of our RMP in terms of action plans, how we intend to engage and then consult with our stakeholders, not least our communities, will be brought through that group. And just to reassure, I don't think there's any compromise at all for you, obviously contributing to our RMP, Councillor Bowe, because much of this is about the outline propositions and the evidence base, and what we gave a guarantee is obviously that any significant changes in communities will be followed up by further engagement with those key communities on some of the actions that we're proposing and indeed that will develop. So on the equality, diversity, inclusion aspect, I actually think in some ways I'm encouraged that there was some pushback around that, because it justifies why we're doing what we're doing. And I think it's such a broad spectrum, equality, diversity and inclusion. It covers a multitude, and I think there's a need to have broader conversations, both in our organisation and in society. And I've had some great conversations with our staff. I by no means think that our fire and rescue service is institutionally racist, far from it. All the conversations I have with teams and with individuals, I think are genuinely really quite positive. And they're in a similar position, I suppose, that the way they look at the organisation is, we're not racist, we're not particularly bigoted around anything. So, why are we doing so much around equality, diversity, and inclusion? But I think the broader conversation is that something is still going on in society and in our organisations, macro, micro kind of perspectives on these things. And I think it's really important that we maintain a position where anybody in our community that's looking at its fire and rescue service as a potential employer sees us as an organisation that it would want to come and work in, that they would want to come and work in, and they would feel safe in and supported. That's one aspect, and I think that starts to shift this position, because we are still a predominantly white male organisation, because our legacy starting point, from way back when, but even in our current organisation, probably somewhere in the mid 80s, 90s as a starting point was virtually all male. We're on a fairly slow shift, and we only have opportunities to change the profile of that through recruitment. So that's a really important message we need to get out there, encouraging more people to come in and be a part of our organisation. And then we know, obviously, the more reflective we are of our organisation, the better we understand the needs of that organisation, and can better have some of the key dialogue around what we want to offer in terms of our services, and then how we can influence the rest of society in some of these key conversations around equality, diversity, inclusion. And I think the thing we try and centre on mostly is around inclusivity. I think the more we can create a very inclusive organisation, being curious and being kind in that as well, the more we can generate the right kind of dialogue, and it opens up the conversation and takes away some of the stigmas that are out there. So I think it's a good affirmation for why we put so much effort into that. Thank you.
Yeah. Adrian, can I just one follow-up, two follow-up? That's a really good answer. I mean, I think you do a brilliant job. It was funny yesterday, International Women's Day. I found myself getting slightly sort of, because there was a post from the fire service, and it appeared to show more men than women in the initial pictures holding up the signs and all the rest of it. And I was all ready to be annoyed. But then I actually opened the whole lot, and actually there were loads and loads. And then I thought, well, actually, what I want is to see men holding up signs saying, we will get rid of all of this rubbish. rather than necessarily just all women, because the whole thing around equality is a men's issue as much as it is a woman's issue. And I say that from a woman who's worked in engineering all her working life and see it firsthand. And the second thing I was going to say was, I think the way you've painted some of the fire engines, or that's not the right word, is it dressed or whatever you do, you put the panels on them. I think it's been absolutely brilliant. Sadly we haven't been able to have a Warwickshire Pride event last year, and may not have this again this year. But 18 months ago when we were there, when you had your fire engine dressed, you were actually there on the field, and the reception was absolutely fantastic. And I think you really, really lead very, very well on all that stuff. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Dave, you've indicated next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Kevin, questions about the road traffic collisions and the fatality rates. And obviously, looking at the documents, you've reflected the need really well in the risk assessment. What follows the risk assessment? Will there be an organisational delivery plan which will then set interventions against the target and move it forward? Because, I'm pleased to see that you've recorded in there on page 116 that you stand a 50% greater chance of being killed on the roads of Warwickshire than you do in West Midlands. So without doubt, in a fantastic world where fire deaths you're doing great work in terms of prevention. It's the thorn in the side, isn't it? It's the volume with 300 people being killed and seriously injured that's still not acceptable, regardless of anybody's good work so far.
Kieran, did you want to come back on that?
If I may, thank you. Yeah, I'll try and be briefer than before. I'm quite passionate about EDI, as you probably know. I'm equally passionate about road traffic collision and driving down those killed and seriously injured on our roads. And absolutely, this all converts into action plans. And as you know, obviously we're doing some great partnership work, but it's much broader than that for us. It enables us to have a clear mandate then to go out and work with everybody we can to drive down these issues of people being killed on our roads. I think it'd be really great to bring to you some of the work we're doing with the performance and business intelligence team. And I know that many of you have seen some of their outputs from other forums, but we're doing some great work there to better understand, well, who is it, who are our target audience now, because we feel like we're turning a corner with some of our younger people and younger road users. So we've now got to reframe what the new challenge is and how to re-engage with some of these people. Equally, where the most dangerous parts of our road arterial structure is in Warwickshire. And we're doing some really good benchmarking now, I feel, with more comparable fire rescue services. We've got a really good relationship going with Oxfordshire. There's 2 other county council fire rescue services with similar risk profiles, similar demographic and service numbers. So we think that'll give you a better understanding of how we're performing around this, because we genuinely love to hear obviously all the praise around the fire rescue service, but I feel we do need to have our feet held to the fire on a number of these things, because we genuinely want to make sure we're delivering for you all. And on the RTC work, we think this will give you a better take of how we're performing on road traffic collisions compared with 2 other services of a comparable sort of setup. And also this will direct our activities and those action plans. So that's the next stages of this, and clearly working with partners will be the way forward for us as well.
Thank you, Ken. Dave, did you want to come back on that? You've got your hand up, Phil?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that everything you're doing everything, aren't you, that you possibly can at the moment, and the question now becomes, how can you exercise the influence you have to push other partners to be more effective? And if it is a case of engineering in budgets, then the question is, at what price is a life or a life-changing injury? I do think your map on page 86 demonstrates the complexity of the problem, which is the county-wide map showing the locations. It just proves that there isn't a simple solution to any of this because of the spread and the volume of the incidents that sit there. But more power to you guys and your elbow, and I'll be really interested to read your action plan and performance framework when it comes forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Aid, you're indicating you'd like to come in, and then.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'll be really brief because really Kieran's covered the points I was going to cover, but it's just going back to that proposal 1 around equality, diversity, integrity. I think it just, all I'd like to say really, I think it just reinforces how important it is to keep that proposal within the RMP front and centre, because we did, to be fair, we kind of a little bit of critique to include it in the RMP in the first place, but I think it's immensely important now because it allows us in the future, over the next few years within our action plans to sort of develop our people plan within the service and our recruitment policies. So I just think it's just so important that I'm just so pleased we kept it in, and thanks for picking it up, Councillor Bowe. That's what I'd like to say, really.
Thank you very much, Abe. Andy, do you want to come back in and round up? Dave, you've got your hand up. I don't know if it's a legacy hand still.
Yeah, sorry, Adrian, it is.
No problem. Cheers. Andy.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I don't feel so bad with my legacy hand earlier, so that's good, in good company. Yeah, just a couple of things. Obviously, road safety is in my portfolio as well. In 1920, we had 34 people killed. Vast majority were pedestrians, cyclists and motorcyclists. So we are starting to get a pattern of the emergence of the profile. One of the few positives from COVID has been less traffic on the road, and serious injuries and deaths have reduced significantly this year. There was some recent stats a recent meeting that showed that. But I think Dave is right. Councillor Riley is right. There's no simple solution to this. We do need to look at the profile. I know average speed cameras are going to be brought in parts of the county as well, and they've had a significant effect in the West Midlands. It is interesting that Councillor Ryan mentioned the West Midlands roads, and they've had a significant effect in Coventry in particular, reducing the number of accidents and serious injuries. London Road is the one I always quote, but I've been to Coventry a lot recently. There's quite a few springing up there, so I think there's something we need to learn there. We're also bringing in the SATOs, as opposed to the councils who might be called SADOs. It's SATOs, safer travel to school, bringing in two officers to encourage safe, sustainable travel to school. And there's a whole raft of options they can bring in and look at, and they will be looking at. They won't be one size fits all. They will be tailored to the need. So, for example, in Southam and Warwickshire West, we've got a primary school and a secondary school, and there's a lot of traffic in there. I managed to get a zebra crossing put in, but there are still things there, and that won't be the same as a really rural school, primary school. So they are tailoring it to the needs. So lots of options in there that we do need to improve. One death or one serious injury is far too many. So again, we do need to look at that. And then the other thing I would say on the diversity point, so thank you very much, Councillor Bowe, for putting that person right. Obviously, the person wouldn't get facts in the way of a good argument, so well done for that. But again, shout out to Imran and his team, who's doing great work. He's doing great work for us, and he's really made an impression that he works for several, in conjunction with other several fire authorities, and is known as an exemplar in the West Midlands region. So great work there. So again, thanks to everybody involved, and thank you for all the questions, and hopefully I haven't taken up too much time.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, there are no other speakers that are indicated. So we have a recommendation in front of us that we, you've got the recommendation that the OSC considers the views expressed by Cabinet, and we note the outcome of the report. We adopt the 5 proposals, and we authorise Cabinet to approve the annual action plan to deliver the IRMP. Do we have a proposer on that? Councillor Bowe, do I have a seconder? Councillor Singh-Birdie, is everybody in favour of that? Yep, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Right, can I say, as it's the last meeting of the municipal year, and as our fire team have got to go, thank you so much for your support this year. It has been greatly appreciated, and for all your hard work. We know you're the finest fire service in the country. I know you've just got to go now and convince the inspectors. Any hassle, Councillor Bode will be at your discretion. We will send her along to help you sort them out. Don't worry about that. So thank you very much indeed for what you have done, and go and make your case. But as I say, we know you're the finest in the country, and I'm sure the panel all agree on that. Thank you so much.
I can be there in about 10 minutes, okay? So, you let me know.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Take care all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Right, for the rest of us, we'll step back in the agenda to item number 3, questions to portfolio holders. Councillor Bode, you've indicated first.
Thank you. It was a question to Cam, who I think is here. I saw her earlier. Yep, she's there. So it was really about libraries. Some people may know I'm very passionate about libraries, and I'm looking at Judy and thinking about this, particularly around children's centres. And when Sure Start first started, there used to be book bags and free books for all babies and all the rest of it. Sadly, those days are long gone. But at the Children's Centre, the Warwick District Children's Centre meeting last week, I was able to remind those present once again of the value of a library to families, to the fact that you can borrow things for free and take them back and swap them for something else, and you don't have to be stuck, have to buy something and be stuck with it, particularly for families on low incomes and where times are tight. And I'm hoping that is taken, even with Click and Collect. We're very fortunate in Lillington to have a library, and Click and Collect, hopefully libraries will be open again next month. But I just wondered, and I know libraries get promoted a lot through our social media and all the rest of it, but I just wondered whether Cam had got any thoughts on any other ways or better ways to remind parents, children's centres, other provide family information service, others, just about how fabulous it is to have this brilliant resource on your doorstep that allows you to take things away for completely free of charge for 3 weeks and bring them back. I was reminded that I used to regularly pay a fine because I never took the DVDs back quick enough. And I'm now not sure whether they still bother with DVDs, whether DVDs are seen as being very old hat. I used to pay a fortune in fines. Borrow them on your child's ticket, it's fine. But I just wonder if there's any more that we can do to just promote the free use of libraries to more deprived families. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I've still got some VCRs, Sarah. So Councillor Core, Cam.
Do you want me to take all questions first?
Absolutely. You go through all of those. And Judy, is yours a question for Cam as well?
Yeah, really, to echo what Sarah said, I think we almost need a relaunch of working with families. I'm not sure what they do with Babies Need Books these days, but as the person guilty for taking off fines off children's books, which is one of my proudest achievements, when I did Bookstart, it has been difficult. I've been clicking and collecting all during COVID, which has been brilliant. And occasionally when I'm there, I see people, picking up with children's books. But I think if any of our range of borrowers need perhaps that extra bit of support and encouragement now, it's the people, young children, they haven't been able to get to Bounce and Rhyme, which is always a good opportunity to get things. So I'm with Sarah. Have you got plans to almost relaunch our offer for the under fives?
Okay, Cam, lots there for you to come back
There
on.
it is, and obviously, I don't know anybody who isn't proud of our library service at the moment, because they've done so much over the last year in terms of the befriending calls, the borrow box, the setting up rhyme time digitally. There is just the list is endless of exactly how much and to whom the library services has given support to over the last year or so. But in terms of relaunching, definitely I think what we need to do going forward is when we definitely know, inverted commas, that we're allowed to open up. I think we will do a relaunch, as you say, and what we should be doing is actually encouraging our mums, young mums, around the 1 to 5s and encouraging people to join the library. When we did, and I think we still do, when we're registering births, we give them a free library ticket. So they're joined from birth. I think we still do that, and I think that's quite a good idea. So Ed's nodding, so I'm assuming we're still doing that. But definitely once we get into knowing exact dates, times, we will definitely do a relaunch and make sure that our libraries are absolutely well promoted. So take on board exactly what you say, both Judy and Sarah. Agree with you both. And Aob's here to even support us even more. So go for it, Aob.
Yeah, I think Aob's coming in with some comments and a fantastic background there, Aob.
Yeah, it's my sort of tribute. That fact is that all our cultural sort of services are all closed, and we were the first to close, and theatres are going to be the last to open. So it's my little sort of reminder that all our theatres are closed. I'm a trustee of a large regional theatre in Birmingham, so passionate about that. But what I was going to mention was Judy mentioned Book Start. We've got a fantastic scheme, and Judy sort of set it all up, and it's going great guns. And health visitors have been helping us deliver Book Start. However, during the pandemic, health visitors weren't going into people's homes as regularly. So we asked our registrars to give the Book Start packs out during birth registrations. That still had to be done face to face legally, and the registrars have said to us, we don't want to stop. The parents absolutely sort of really sort of happy to get these books for sort of babies during the registration, and most of our registrations now happen in library buildings or next door, so it's really a sort of way of trying to encourage right at the start in terms of babies sort of getting books. And Judy helped us get rid of fines for the under 5s. Cam helped us get rid of fines for children. Now the only fines that we have are overdue charges, we call them, are from 60 to sort of older people. So if we were able to bridge the income gap, we'd love to do that, but that's for another day.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Okay. I don't see any other hands indicating. Are there any other questions for portfolio holders? No? Okay, right. Well, we'll move on to item number 4, which I think is on page 13 of your pack, the work programme, which is for noting. Is everybody happy that we note that? Yeah, okay, yes, I've got nods there, fantastic. Right, and then we'll move on to agenda item number 5. And Ayob, this is you to present, I believe, an update on the heritage and culture strategy.
Right, yes. Thank you for inviting me. And I have got two sort of colleagues, Richard and Emma, that are also on the call, that there may be sort of questions. Your committee requested an update on the heritage and cultural strategy that Warwickshire signed off last year. I'm assuming that you've all read the report, but I really would like to highlight a few points by way of introduction. We launched the Heritage and Cultural Strategy just before the first corona lockdown. However, we've achieved quite a lot despite the sector being closed for business and many of the staff furloughed. In Warwickshire, nearly 3,500 people employed in this cultural sector, and it contributes 66 million to the local economy, so it's quite a significant sector. I must stress that it's not a Warwickshire County Council strategy, it's a sector-wide strategy that we've been working with, and we've been working with all the district and boroughs as part of the steering sort of group, and those are listed in the report. We've developed some very strong sort of partnerships as we've been working through the strategy, taking it forward. a big part of the work that we've been doing over the last 9 months has been signposting and alerting the sector to funding opportunities, including the Cultural Recovery Fund via newsletters and support. So, as I mentioned, the heritage and cultural sector has been one of the most impacted sectors there, and often many of the organisations rely on income sales for people coming to events and activities, and that's been completely gone there. As part of our work on the heritage and cultural strategy, we did also recently undertook a sector survey to see how the sector's doing in terms of the pandemic. What are the priorities? Are there still the key priorities that we set out in the original strategy in terms of our action plan? So Emma, do you just want to say a few words about what came out in terms of the feedback from the sector-wide survey?
Lovely, thanks Ayoub, Chair. Yeah, just very quickly, I mean, as Ayoub said, literally at the point at which we launched the strategy and the associated action plan, the first pandemic hit. And obviously we were very aware that the sector were particularly impacted on, both in terms of the medium to large scale organisations like those reflected behind Ayoub, who had to close and furloughed a lot of staff, right the way through, particularly in Warwickshire, we've got a lot of small scale, very volunteer led heritage and arts organisations who obviously were very badly affected in terms of their volunteer base. So we did a sector survey back in May to really take the temperature to see how our organisations were feeling, and also to be honest and ask the question, what do you need from us and from our district and borough partners in terms of helping you through it, and then also looking to recovery. And the key things that came out of it were not necessarily about funding. I think a lot of them were quite nimble and managed to look at funding fairly quickly, because both Arts Council and National Heritage Lottery Fund turned their funding programmes around very, very quickly. And Abe and his team managed to signpost a lot of people to those very, very quickly. But the thing that came out of it was around marketing and about peer-to-peer support and profile, because I think as the sector has now been officially closed for such a long time, there are concerns that our audience base are not going to then reconnect, re-establish and want to participate. And I think for sectors, particularly the theatre sector, or those that require indoor audiences where you're in quite small spaces, it's going to be quite difficult to persuade some of those audience members back. So that was, I suppose, for us, one of the key things that came out of the sector survey that then influenced some of the work that we're now doing at the moment. Thanks, Abe.
Yeah, our priorities going forward are listed in the report and linked to the principles and priorities of the County Council's COVID recovery plan. And these include developing social prescribing programmes linking to the climate agenda, particularly around rivers and walkways, and also linking to the Coventry City of Culture and working towards Birmingham Commonwealth Games and how we can capitalise on these two huge events coming out there. So really our focus is really being around sector recovery, and we're asking over the insecurity for any feedback in terms of our plans going forward, or any comments or feedback you want to give to us. So that's it from us.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Ayoub. Right. I'm sure you've got the recommendations in front of you. We are being asked to note the comment of the report, agree the direction of travel, and comment on the proposed priorities. So I will pass it over to members now for us to agree that strategy. So firstly, any comments on the report to add to the recommendations? Right. I've got Judy and Sarah. So Judy.
Thank you. I think listening to Emma is what I was going to say. I think marketing is going to be a biggie for these organisations. Funding, yes, is always an issue, but we're going to have to be encouraged to go back to the theatre. we're all very keen to do outdoor things at the moment, but lockdown as you know, all of us, I think, will be a bit nervous about going to any indoor event, including football. But yeah, I might not get there till September. But yeah, I think you're right, Emma. I think it's helped with marketing, which we Warwickshire County Council can do and do really well. And as much marketing advice and support we can give to organisations, both big and small, I think will really, really help. And again, working with the boroughs and districts, you know, who also have their own promotions teams, small or large, I think that is the way forward. So yeah, I agree with the recommendations and really welcome the thought that marketing might be the way forward. We can help people.
Thank you, Judy. We'll take a note of that. Sarah?
Yes, thank you. I think this is almost a sector that's been, it's very difficult to say which sector's been hit the hardest, but I think because there's just nothing, and you sort of haven't really had, this sector hasn't really had anything for months and months and months. As Judy said, you know, the thought of going back into a packed theatre or venue. I've got tickets to see Genesis, and the older ones amongst you may remember who Genesis are. I bought those tickets about 15, 16 months ago, and I'm now on my third date to go and see them at the NEC, which is now September. So it's moved from December to April and now to December. And I have to say at the moment, the thought of sitting in with over 10,000 people in the NEC does seem a little bit strange to me, but who knows, by the time we get to September, it might all be fine. I mean, it's interesting, some of the activities you've highlighted here, I hadn't even thought about. I mean, canals and waterways, I hadn't even thought about that as being heritage and culture, but of course it is. And lots of the events that you mentioned here in the action plan on page 16 are absolutely right. And of course, we've got City of Culture, which is really starting to come into people's sort of view now. Obviously, the start of it's been delayed, but I think that's really starting to come. We've got the Commonwealth Games coming, and obviously coming to Leamington and to Warwick with the bowls and the cycling. We've got, things like, so some of this stuff is outside, which I guess will be easier, and you've got the summer coming. But I think, you know, anything that we can do to help. And I was also thinking about children at school, because I know with my school governor hat on, all those trips that the children would have made to the pantomime or to the theatre, the annual trip or whatever, all that has also gone. So our children have missed out, particularly primary, have really missed out on the opportunity to take part in cultural events and to see culture and to be enthused and encouraged and excited by going to the theatre or the pantomime. And their parents haven't been able to take them either. So there's lots and lots of things for you to do. So I think this is all great. Perhaps a comment about, because I can't see particularly anything here about schools, about working with schools. Any comments on that will be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm sure we can add that in. That would make a sensible addition to the report, I would have thought. Andy and Jim. Yes.
Just briefly, I could just add in terms of Sarah's remarks about schools. Only yesterday, Emma and I were we had a meeting with the Royal Shakespeare Company. As part of the Heritage and Cultural Strategy, we're developing a Warwickshire education partnership for the whole sort of county about arts and cultural education. And the Royal Shakespeare Company is going to be the lead organisation to take that forward with our help. So really sort of the educational sort of partnership is going to be absolutely key about getting arts and heritage and cultural education in schools through sort of drama and work. So that is part of the strategy. And it's great that the Royal Shakespeare Company said they'll lead that on behalf of Warwickshire, for the whole of Warwickshire, not for South Warwickshire, for there, in terms of supporting schools being able to access high quality culture and arts activities.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ayub. And have to say the Royal Shakespeare Company is wonderful. My wife and I don't enjoy going off abroad. Our favourite sort of weekend away is a weekend in Stratford at a nice hotel and a trip to the RSC. There is nothing better. It's really nice up there. So let's hope we can get the theatres open again soon, because as Sarah said, they have really borne the brunt of this pandemic. It's devastated our arts industry with literally no income. Andy, you've indicated.
Sorry, I switched myself off there. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to very briefly endorse what everyone else has said, and particularly some of the things that Emma said. I'm a trustee at Middleton Hall and Gardens in my division, and it really has been hit badly by the pandemic. Finance has been a problem, but it's not just finance. I mean, the volunteers, the age profile of the volunteers is elderly, and I'm not sure we'll get some of those volunteers back when things do return to normal. I think this strategy is really, really important, and we really need to sort of think how we can support this sector of our economy and not just in economic terms, just in heritage terms. There's such a lot that we need to do to make sure that we don't lose these really valuable assets that we've got. So,
thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, and again, we could perhaps add a comment along those lines, John, to that report. And the final speaker on this is Councillor Gilbert. Pete.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My signal's atrocious, so you may not hear me. If you can't hear me, I won't speak.
We can hear you, Pete. We can hear you.
Okay. I actually am very confident about how theatre will come back. I think the people that perform it, the people that plan it, the people that promote it are very confident about their sector, and that confidence is contagious. So I think we could take a lesson from that confidence, because we need to be confident as organisations to get people out of their houses, to get them back through the front door, or wherever it may be. Because once they realise what they've been missing, they will get back on the proverbial horse and start enjoying themselves again. And that's what we need to do. So I'm fully confident about how theatre will perform. What I would say is they need to ensure that they work together, and they're not competing with neighbouring theatres as much as as possible. That they're actually sort of allowing each other to get their steps going again and to feel their feet, as opposed to each trying to capture the same market. And also those initial performances, productions, whatever they put on, are going to need to be really top notch to get people back in and engage with theatre. Because it is so important for us in this county, whether it be in Stratford or other areas around the county where there are volunteer bases and small theatres and small heritage parts, but also as well for the service it gives to the hospitality sector, which some may dispute is possibly as comparably severely hit during this pandemic as everywhere else. But we need it to bring back tourism in. But what I do believe we need to do now, Mr. Chairman, is be confident. Let's take a leaf out of the book of how theatre will sell itself, because I think that confidence is something we can learn from. We've got to start encouraging people out their front doors, getting back to normality, and realising to some extent we will have to live with this and move forward.
Pete, very well said. Thank you very much indeed. So we've got a few comments there that have been added in. I'm sure John will put together those comments and add them on to our recommendation. So with that little caveat, are we happy to move that report? Councillor O'Rourke, did you?
Yes.
Maggie, how are you?
I just want to say what an excellent report, and I love the fact that we're talking about working in partnership, not just in Warwickshire, across the wider area, because it's so important that we develop and build those partnerships, that we use our resources effectively to rebuild what we've got even better than what we've had, actually. But the thing I'm really sort of happy to see is the sort of the creative health and well-being theme. Obviously, coming from a health background, any opportunities to promote health and well-being is great, and to do it in a creative way, which makes it exciting and different, has got to be really positive. So thank you to the officers for all their hard work. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you, Maggie. Okay, well, did you want to move the report, Maggie, then, with those caveats?
Yes, I'd like to move the report. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Yeah, Andy Jens. All in favour? Yep. Thank you very much. Okay, so that will move on. Right, so if you want to go to page 29 of your packs, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to the update on scrutiny report, and I believe Nicola Vine's presenting this for us, so welcome Nicola, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, thank you for having me. I'm doing a sort of circuit of the OSCs over the sort of next couple of weeks, so I apologise to anybody who's heard me before, but I think it's an important topic. You may recall that pre-COVID, which feels quite a while ago, we started the process of considering scrutiny and how we might improve on the way that we currently do it, bearing in mind the sort of statutory guidance around ownership and challenge. The result of that is the independent report, which was attached as an appendix to this report, which I hope people have had a chance to consider. There was some really positive feedback in there, particularly around the commitment of the members to continuous improvement and scrutiny, and also to the work that the democratic services officers sort of do on a regular basis. But there were some opportunities to improve which were highlighted, and some recommendations which I've set out in section 4 of the paper. And I'd like just to highlight a couple of those, if I may, because I think the important part of this is hearing back from the members of the committee as to what their views are on the paper and how you might see it moving forward. So there was a suggestion of that we should consider relaunching the scrutiny function, highlighting sort of collegiate, constructive and challenging discussion to sort of move things forward, and creating a greater alignment with the council's corporate objectives, whether that's by means of restructuring committees in parallel with that to foster sort of themes and thematic overview, or following the change portfolio themes may work. There are some practical issues which I've mentioned in the paper about how you might do that, given the council's legal obligation to scrutinise everything, and how that might end up with slightly imbalanced committees. But that's something we can think about. The other sort of key messages that came out quite strongly were the use of virtual meetings technology and how that has sort of helped over the past year in particular, and how we might use that to engage with the public as well as sort of amongst the members and officers and with external partners. We're still sort of waiting to see how meetings will progress following May as the sort of COVID legislation changes, but that could be an option. And other things that came out were the potential for reviewing the timetable for meetings so that they could be, the scrutiny issues could be dealt with at the optimum time in the overall meeting cycle to actually sort of input into decision making as it was happening. And praise for what we've called dynamic task and finish groups, the idea being something like the member working groups on COVID that happened recently and how effective they were. So the purpose of the report is to request that members consider the recommendations and the suggestions that are summarised. I've included at paragraph 5 some points to consider, which might be a starting point for the consideration, about whether we wish to consider reconfiguring overview and scrutiny to align, be it with the council plan or change portfolios. Do members have a view on how we might reinvigorate agendas to sort of touch on things in a different way? And what thoughts do members of the committee have around the opportunities to improve that have been identified and how we might take them forward? The plan is that I'm going to, as I say, go to all the overview and scrutiny committees and sort of take soundings and input from everybody, be it at the meeting or afterwards if people think things, quite happy to send them through to me after that. And then we'll come up with a plan which we'll bring back to members sort of post-election as to how we might pull all of that input together into a coherent way forward for scrutiny.
Nicola, thank you very much indeed. I like this report. I think it's a really important report. And the comment in here, and it's an old term going back, is the old critical friend comment. We're not here just to have a go at the Cabinet and the Cabinet members and decisions. That's not the purpose of this. This is to literally work alongside our Cabinet colleagues and to see what we can do to help improve and look at a different angle. So scrutiny's got a crucial role to play moving forward, and we need to do it properly. And all three of my spokes colleagues have indicated on here, so I'll run through. So first of all, Maggie.
Yes, it's very clearly laid out report, not too long, so very easy to sort of take on board. In terms of sort of how we sort of make it more exciting and all of that sort of stuff, I just wonder sometimes. I know when we've done very few select committees over the years, and it's a big thing to do a select committee, but what you do get from that is that sort of view of the stakeholders and actual case studies in terms of how things affect people. And if I know I'm not going to be here in the future, but if I'd like to say one thing, it would be great for us to have that opportunity to listen to, what stakeholders, what those challenges are, what the barriers are, and also where things have, been turned around and we've made changes that have really benefited people. So not just sharing challenges, but sharing good news stories as well, I think would be really useful.
Thank you, Maggie. Judy, you've indicated next, then Sarah, then Dave, then Pete is the order I've got at the moment. So Judy.
Thank you. I do welcome the report. Scrutiny is always probably the most hardest thing I think to do in any council. I'm going to be a bit political here. I'm in a district now which actually has chosen scrutiny chairs from all different parties who not necessarily normally would have got one, but they got a particular expertise, so they put themselves forward and they were given a chair. I think most of our chairs are excellent, but I don't like the way they're politically, and the other parties might disagree if they get the majority, but I don't like the way in county that it's always going to the the main party to have all the committee, and I'm happy to share that. I think it should be shared out, but that's my personal opinion. And I also would like more cross between the committees. And I think sometimes we touch on a particular subject which actually is touched on in another committee as well, but we can't comment on it because it's staffing, or we can't comment on it, So I quite like, are there any opportunities to, again, and I've done it at district, where audit and overview actually do meet as a committee to discuss an item? And I quite like that idea as well, that, why can't children's services meet with, and I think sometimes they do with adult services. So, I think, we've got a great range of expertise with the councillors, which is sometimes lost because you're never involved in. I try and go to all scrutiny committees if I can, and thankfully we're allowed to speak even if we're not allowed to vote. So I would like more linkage between the committees if possible. And yes, sometimes it feels like we're just ticking a box. We're actually just ticking a box because it's already, the report is there. We just got a comment. It very rarely ever gets changed. So what are we here for if we're not here to get things changed? And it might be an individual frustration of mine, but because I want to be everywhere doing everything and being involved in everything. But I think we've got to, sometimes we get reports last minute because it's going to go to the cabinet. We really should be involved as early on as possible. So pre-scrutiny is always, very, very difficult to do. But just personally, I get frustrated with scrutiny. I don't feel I'm achieving anything. About how many comments I might, I don't feel I'm achieving. Perhaps that's just me and I'm not doing it right.
Thank you, Jude. No, I take on board what you're saying. One of the recommendations that's in here is having that overall chair, a chair of chairs of scrutiny, to try and make sure that some of that you're looking for, that overlap is dealt with, and that cross panel sort of cooperation is there. So I think what you're saying there has value, real value, and I think that comment in the report that we bring an overall chair in really would allow sort of links between all, and perhaps more external experience involved in the process. I don't know where there's expertise, but that's valuable comments, Judy. Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. The first comment I would make would be looking at the list of interviewees on page 46. And if you weren't a portfolio holder, a leader of a group, or a chair of a scrutiny committee, you pretty much didn't get interviewed. I can see two, I think, which was Don Holland and Keith Kondoka, and that's it. Nobody else who sat on scrutiny, who wasn't either a portfolio holder or a chair, got interviewed. And I think that's a real shame, because this review has sort of passed me by, and that's probably because I only know one person closely who was interviewed, and that was Jerry Roothouse. So no other Lib Dems were interviewed, no independents were interviewed, only one Labour Party member, 2 Greens were interviewed. So I do think that the review, and I appreciate it was just starting as COVID was coming along, and the report stated the 2nd of October, but I do think that was a huge opportunity missed to talk to some of us who've been involved in scrutiny for a long time, who sat on different committees, and perhaps would have a different view, because depending on where you sit and where you're coming from, you will have a different view of scrutiny. So I do think that's a real shame. I'm not sure who to direct that to, that's to Nicola or whoever, but I do think it's a real shame that wasn't picked up, and that more members with different experiences were not actually given the opportunity to comment on scrutiny. I would absolutely agree with Judy that the chairs of scrutiny should not be from the ruling group. Absolutely not. And I think it's a real downfall, of our system that we don't. It used to be, many years ago, the chairs of scrutiny would be different from the people on the cabinet, and they would be from different parties. And I think it's a real shame that that's been neglected. I can understand a large group with 33 members needs to find things for its members to do, and chairing scrutiny is, I guess, one of them. But I do agree, and I think at the district, and also I'm very aware of what goes on in the district council, I do think it's a strength that the members of the ruling group or they are not the people who chair scrutiny, and I think that's something that should be looked at. I also think, I would hope that we will go back to physical meetings for the actual scrutiny committees, but that we should use the opportunities of Teams and all the other things to actually widen our brief to do more exciting things. I was quite attracted by Maggie's idea of some sort of, I've forgotten the phrase, yes, select committees, or looking at stuff in depth. I can remember many years ago, the Health Scrutiny Committee, which I sat on, we sat in the old Manor Hall and actually did some really important work on the health service and proposed changes in the health service locally over a couple of days. So I think there's lots of things that scrutiny could do, using all the technologies that are available to us, plus physical meetings. And it's perhaps easier to bring people in from outside if you're actually using virtual meetings. More use of time-limited task and finish groups, which seem to have sort of gone into a bit of decline, I would say, over the last few years. I mean, from memory, we used to have loads and loads and loads of things, and then somebody came in, and I'm feeling it might have been Izzy, and wiped them all away. So all the old working groups and standing committees were all wiped away, and then the plan was they would only be set up if they were absolutely required, and they should be time limited. And I would agree with that. There's no point having a group just meeting or sitting there for the sake of it. But again, I do think we could do more around doing particular investigations on particular things. And perhaps being a bit awkward sometimes, as you say, well, we want to look at that. It may not suit the ruling group for us to look at that, but actually we think that's really, really important to have an in-depth look at a particular topic. And the final thing I would say, is around the frequency of meetings. I've never understood why this group has one less meeting than all the other scrutiny committees. I've been on this group for nearly 4 years now. It took me a little while to work it out because I could never quite work out why we didn't seem to meet. The meetings didn't seem to quite fit. And we only meet 4 times a year, not 5 like everybody else does. And bizarrely this time we've got no performance management stuff before us, which we did in December. So presumably whatever comes after May will then look at performance stuff, and that'll be 6 months probably before we've looked at performance stuff. And I would think, if we're not looking at performance and building up expertise, because I think that's one of the joys of the scrutinies, members sit there for a long time, they become familiar, and then they're actually able to go back and use the information and their knowledge to actually inform the scrutiny process. Just a few points there, Chair, to give you something to think about. But I would definitely support the chairs of the committees not being from the ruling group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And if, God forbid, we lose a majority in May, I'll agree with you. But okay, no, those are valuable comments. One thing I do agree with you on, I looked at the list of interviewees as well, and I thought you're interviewing all the portfolio holders who are not involved in scrutiny, but you're not interviewing more scrutiny panel members who are involved in the process. So no objection to you interviewing the portfolio holders. I can see the sense in that, but I do agree, perhaps more people that actually are on the scrutiny panels being interviewed from more parties would have been a good move. So I think that's a useful comment, and one we can take back as we progress this system forward. Okay, Dave Riley, you've indicated next.
I thought I had.
No, it's Dave, then it's you, Pete.
Thanks, Adrian. I support what you and Sarah have just said around the people interviewed, but it's also interesting to see that those people interviewed have still come up with a critical framework which is constructive. And this report feels like the start of something. I think I'll just make 2 observations. You can't do scrutiny without a clear performance framework. And the biggest problem with the County Council from my 4 years is the performance framework has never been clear. And added to the back of that, it's never been clear who is actually accountable for anything. So for the scrutiny process to move forward, it does need to have a proper performance suite and clear lines of delineation around individual responsibility. And you can't just say the leader is responsible or the chief exec is responsible. It has to be more clear to people who actually have influence directly over performance in those areas. I think the second point that I'd make is it's really interesting to read Dr. Martin's report, which is published, but it's titled Final Amendments, which suggests to me that the report has been redacted in some way. So can I just ask about why it's called Final Amendments and what was in it before it was finally amended?
I can probably answer that, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. No, it was just that she produced it in draft first, so that we could just double check it for typographicals and all those sorts of things. So, and ask some questions where it wasn't clear what she meant. So there hasn't been any redaction in that sense. It is her independent report.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Gilbert, Peter.
Thank you. My camera's still playing up, so you'll have the benefit of not seeing me. I agree with Sarah completely. Scrutiny is so important and keeps us all on our guard and generates good policy. And it should always be done by, yes, critical friends. But I always look at scrutiny when it's being chaired by the same group who's ever making the decisions. It's a little like me asking my mother if I put weight on. She'll say, no, darling, you look lovely. We need critical friends. That's not the person you ask. You ask somebody that's really going to hold your feet to the fire, test the rigour of the policy, ensure the ratepayer, the members of the public are being represented. And that is done, I believe, by having real critical analysis of policy. We should never be frightened of it. Now, whether it is chaired by opposition members, I don't know whether that's productive, because obviously they also have a political agenda. and that might not necessarily tie in with being constructive. So maybe we should look at chairs of scrutiny being independent of any political group and being put in place to be able to actually hold policy and hold the controlling group, whoever they may be. It's all right us always saying, well, we're in control now. We might not be in control, and we may think, well, they're not getting criticised or they're not getting their rigour checked because scrutiny's not doing its job properly. Now, I know of things that I would have liked to have scrutinised. I'm quite happy being a backbencher, quite happy being a member of a constructive scrutiny team, but that needs to be afforded me. And I think that what Dave said was right about a proper programme of scrutiny as well needs to be there for us to work from. But we should certainly look at who chairs the committees. No disrespect to you, Mr. Chairman, or also Dave, who's the chairman of another committee, but it's what I believe. It's what I've always believed, is that scrutiny is a right and proper part of any organisation and should be done by critical friends and should be done to ensure that policy is right and proper and it is the best way of delivering services to the member of public that we represent. So I think we should always look at that. It's an important part of our duty as democratic bodies.
Thank you, Pete. And I would never once believe you were being disrespectful to me after all the years we've known one another. So thank you. Okay, Andy, Councillor Jens.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I apologise to Nicola if I'm repeating anything I've said at other overview and scrutiny committees. Yeah, I like this report. I think it's a well-written report. It's to the point. It's short and to the point, and it gets the message across. I agree pretty much with everything that's been said already. I certainly agree with the issues about the ruling group having all the chairs. I think just because we're the controlling group at the moment doesn't mean that we have to think that is the right thing to do. I think now with the election coming up, this really is the time to look at how we do scrutiny. I think we can do it a lot better than we do. I think it's really important that we do it properly, and I think it's really important that we have a mechanism to support scrutiny committees to do their jobs properly. So I think things like the chair, the overall chair of all the committees, I think that's a great idea. I think we should definitely look into things like that. I think the use of virtual technology, virtual meetings can certainly help us to do the job of enhance the way we do the job. I really find that most of the stuff in the report is what we want to do, and I hope that after the election we can look at taking this forward. So, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Andy. One of the things I've really enjoyed about this panel over the last year or so is that it has not been what I would call particularly political. It has been focused on the topics, and I think it's worked well because of that. And I've always been keen that whenever a suggestion has been put forward for the work programme, we adopt it, because I believe that that's what effective scrutiny is about. It's not about just highlighting what you want. It's about looking at what we're doing and trying to get the best outcome, as Councillor Gilbert says, for the ratepayers, the taxpayers of our county. So I hope I've always been fair, and I hope I've always been sort of inclusive of all the topics we feel we needed to look at. And I apologise if I haven't. So, Councillor Webb, Alan, you're next.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. I thought I'd better speak at my last meeting. When I first got involved in, well, not when I first got involved in local government, because scrutiny wasn't a feature in those days. We used to have committees and they just, did things, recommendations to policy committee and all that stuff. But when scrutiny came in, love it or hate it, the big difference between scrutiny and policy was that scrutiny was supposed to be completely impartial. And you were told as members you're not allowed to have group decisions about scrutiny. What you must do is to look at the items and work very, very closely together. And you must have a combined understanding. Now, if we're not careful, and it's been mentioned in terms of chairs, I'm not going to labour this point particularly, but when the same group has got all the chairs or whatever, it does have that appearance, I think. I agree with Judy. that it's just part of the overall political figure of the council and appears to exclude people who are not part of that. And that I don't think is good for the public. I don't think it's good for all those people in areas who are represented by members who are not part of that ruling group. And I did find during the last term of this county council, the 2013-2017 term, when it wasn't an overall majority, and most of the chairs, in fact all the chairs I think, were held by non-members of the Conservative group, and you actually found that the chairs of scrutiny finished up working extremely closely with portfolio holders, and you did the business, not just all the business, but you understood what the issues were and how to get the right solutions and take the council forward, not in front of a scrutiny committee particularly, not in front of a council meeting, not in front of a cabinet meeting, but actually you would be able to talk about it person to person in the peace and quiet and understand where people are coming from and why. And it's amazing how you can come to much better solutions when people take that sort of attitude. Because I remember when I used to lead Rugby Borough Council in a minority situation some years ago, and they used to say to Craig Humphrey, who was the leader of the council, some people love him, some people hate him, but there we are, Craig Humphrey, OK mate, now we've looked at the agenda, etc., let's go and talk about it. We go across the road, Adrian knows the pub across the road, and we'd go over there, and I'd buy him a pint, and sometimes he'd buy me one, it's great. And we'd talk about how we were going to solve things. In fact, we used to have a sort of scrutiny group on the council, by which the different representatives of different groups used to talk out of the limelight, but talk around the issues, so that when it came down to the meetings, yes, you could have your group meetings beforehand, because it wasn't scrutiny in those days, to come to a group position, because you had to actually, of course, take your groups along with you, but to make it all work that way so that everybody understood. Because once the elections are over, there is a place for political argument, of course, that happens at the full council meeting, and so long may it happen, right? But when it comes down to sensible government, representative government, and getting the right way forward, it needs to work right the way across the council. And the better ways you can actually get those scrutiny panels to not talk politically, but to actually talk about the best way forward is the way it should be. Please make sure that's the way it is. I'm not saying it isn't, because when you first come onto a brand new council, you find the members get all excited because somebody from the other side has just said something they don't agree with, and they want to shout them down. Yeah, that's politics, but scrutiny isn't about politics. Scrutiny is about good government. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alan. And Alan, I remember the debate when they took committees out and brought scrutiny in rugby. We're both shown we've been in the game a long old time. But yes, I remember the debate well, and I'm sure you do. I think Cal and Peter will as well. There's a few that were back in the day that will remember that debate. And I shall miss you, Alan. I shall miss you on this. You take care. Okay, Councillor Gilbert. Peter, is that a legacy hand, or did you want to come back in?
No, it's not an old hand. It's just a comment that I wanted to make that I didn't make, because obviously I rarely make a point. But the other point that I don't think I did mention was my view on us being at home at the end of a computer screen. I don't think that will be the way of informing good policy, as they say in government moving forward. People get elected to sit in a room, to debate these positions and arguments, to challenge the process, and we need to not be kept at home. We are there to represent not just the rating taxpayer, as you mentioned, Eddie, but the members of the public, and we're there to make sure that things are going well. So I think that's best done not in our back bedrooms, but actually at Shire Hall. So that is something that certainly needs to be challenged by whoever is returned after the election in May, is ensuring that we actually get back into these buildings. I heard of a council a few weeks ago, it may be completely hypocritical, but they were being told that they're not going to be back in the building and at least until the end of the year. Well, that ain't democracy. Lots of things can happen whilst we're all locked away at home, and we need to make sure that things don't. I'm not saying they are, but to do that is best served by actually going to the building that you're elected to represent the people from your area.
Thanks, Pete. And I have to say, whilst I believe there will always be a role for teams, as Sarah said earlier, for perhaps chair and spokes meetings and working groups, I do believe panels, we miss the, I think we miss the camaraderie as well of meeting up and having a chat. And one of the things Alan said, just having an informal chat when we all get together, we often achieve a lot through that, don't we? And I think we are missing that with the pandemic. So let's hope we can get back to the building and get into the old ways sooner rather than later. So we've got to formulate a recommendation here. We've got the report in front of us. There's been some very valid comments made that I'm sure we can pull together. In general, members, are you happy with that report going forward? With the comments that we would have liked to have seen a little bit more discussion with other members, particularly opposition groups. Sarah, are you happy to propose that and those comments to go in? You're on mute.
I hadn't tried to take myself off it. It's awful thing. Do you take your hand down first, or do you take yourself off mute first, because you might forget to do the one after you've done the other? I think absolutely we should put comments in about the fact that the interview schedule was actually really very limited. Indeed, I mean, I may not get much luck with proposing that scrutiny chairs should be taken from the opposition parties, but I do think we could certainly add in stuff about making sure that scrutiny acts in a rigorous way, that we're looking at setting up more investigative work around, say, task and finish groups and stuff like that, and perhaps select committee mode as well. And I would be happy to also propose that we would hope to be back meeting in person, but we also investigate the use of technology in the ways that it may enable us to do stuff in a different way. I mean, it may be that we want to have a small group together. It will be easy to do it on Teams, and perhaps bring in an outside expert. And that's something we don't do a lot of, is it actually bringing people from outside to look at particular topics. And nobody's really explained to me why resources only meets 4 times a year and the others meet 5.
Okay.
But I'm not too worried about that one.
Thank you, Sarah. What I will say, when we talk about administration, opposition councillors and chairs, that still brings in this them and us type of approach that Alan was saying shouldn't be in scrutiny, and I agree with that. I will say it might be worth adding in there that independent chairs with expertise where appropriate, I think would be an excellent idea, because there are people out there who know far more than councillors about a topic, and to have expertise where appropriate brought in may be something we ought to consider. And I'm quite happy to say that when I was interviewed, that was a comment that I made. So whilst those comments are meant to be confidential, I'll say I did say at times we should be having, the station working group with an external chair with expertise was an excellent thing to be involved with, because the council brought in experience and knowledge and helped guide the panel. So there's room for that. Nicola, you want to comment on bringing this together?
Yes, Chair, if I may. Am I sort of understanding that you're going to pull together a set of recommendations? I've taken some quite detailed notes, so I will factor in everything that everybody said that I've got down on paper. And the other thing I think is worth saying is noting the comment Councillor Bode made. Part of the reason for going around and doing this exercise with all of the panels is to sort of gather as much information from you all as possible. So if people think of things sort of outside of the meeting that they wish they'd raised, quite happy for people to send them either to John, who'll pass them on to me, or direct to me. That's absolutely fine, and I'll collate them as part of the exercise of moving forward.
Thanks, Nick. Well, Nicola, there's 7 recommendations there on page 45, which I thought was really where we were basing our comments on for this discussion. So I think we're keen with the comments that have been made to endorse that. So I'm happy to move from the chair that we endorse this report and add on the comments that have been made about external expertise. And it'd be nice to have interviewed 1 or 2 others outside of just chairs, people that were involved in scrutiny, not just chairs and portfolio holders. So thank you. Okay.
I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Webb.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, everybody happy with that? Yeah. Okay, we'll move forward. Thank you very much, Nicola. Thank you. I thought that one would attract some discussion this afternoon. Right. if you want to whiz right through your report pack now to page 245, we're on to the update on the customer experience strategy. And I think John is going to be presenting this to us, John Finley. So, John, I'll pass to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors. Brief update on where we are on the customer experience strategy. The strategy was approved back in December 2019, and an action plan was developed for the first 12 months. There was 11 actions on that plan, and for the first year, we were planning to get a lot of work done. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we were only able to complete one action. 9 actions are in progress, and 1 action has been delayed. The actions all rotated really around socialising the strategy internally in the organisation and gathering intelligence around how we communicate and feedback with our customer. As I said, the reason for the delay in progress has been down to COVID and the impact it's had on the organisation. We've diverted resources away from delivering on the plan and been delivering on the new services that we've been provided to customers during this period. The objectives and the actions of the strategy haven't changed following COVID, and we will be refreshing the action plan now and picking up on the work we've started in 2021 and taking that forward into our new action plan for the next 12 months. I think that's a bit of a brief overview of where we are. I'm happy to take any questions in relation to that.
Thank you, John. And what a year to choose to sort of to deal with this. Not a good one. Any comments on the report? Does anyone want to raise comments on here? Yes, Judy.
Sorry, trouble unmuting first time today. I still think we don't, not quite sure how we, get out there to our public about, certainly the website. The website's got a whole vast range of advice and how to report things. And I'll give you an example. Somebody rang one of my district councillors to say that the light in front of their house was flickering. He then got in touch with me, and I said, well, why don't you just go on the website? Because it's really easy. You just, fix my street. So that was 3 phone calls, just get a flickering light sorted. And every time I write a report for the town council, every time I put and look at the website at so, because there's so much on there. And I know not everybody uses the websites, but I still think we could do a lot more publicity on. You don't need to ring your local councillor. You can fix my street, and how we do it, even if it's a leaflet, I don't know, old-fashioned leaflet, that, this is how you can contact your council, because it just seems ridiculous to me that 3 phone calls and all that time just to get a flickering light sorted when you just put the buttons on the, on the website and it's sorted, So the customer experience, I know we've always got a balance between what's done online and what's done in person. But I think, if nothing, COVID's taught us that, there is so much out there you can do online, and it's encouraging our residents to use it. Again, I don't think libraries being shut hasn't helped either, because libraries are always very good at giving direct advice. So, how do we encourage people to continue and even more use our services online? Libraries are very good at doing it.
Thank you, Judy. I have to say, I think quite a lot of people, particularly in villages, I find, like to let their local councillor know what the problem is because they think we'll get it done. So I'll take that as a compliment, Judy, that they get in touch with you because I think you'll get it done for them. So I don't always think it's a bad thing, but yeah, I take your point. What we need to get them online. Maggie, you've indicated.
Yeah, again, it's a good report. I think it's really difficult though, customer service. It's a really sort of challenging area because you've got to make it as simple and as straightforward as you can, but as inclusive and accessible as you can as well. You know, it is complicated by the fact that we have, you know, sort of county, districts, parish councils, and all the rest of it. But I mean, perhaps one of the approaches I've seen working in the past is about, you know, the frequently asked questions and sort of running services from that. So the ones that get used most of all, and just focusing down on that, and actually just making sure the councillors know as well what those things are. Because I also spend a lot of time briefing borough colleagues about, you know, where they need to go for A, B, C and D. So I think it is tricky when we sort of provide such a wide range of services. But the electronic stuff's good, but it's not just about that, because not everybody is going to be about using the electronic stuff, and we just need to keep it really simple. Simple is the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Particularly with us as councillors, simple's always appreciated. I like simple. I can cope with simple. Cam, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things, really. Absolutely understanding that going forward we need to possibly relook at, relaunch, refresh, whatever the words may be. Because obviously our comms team have done a phenomenal job this year in making sure that the messaging that's been going out has been around COVID, keeping safe, keeping to the government guidelines and all the rest of it. And whilst doing that, they've also been, you know, trying to ensure that our online offer has been promoted as much as possible. So I think we're all in agreement with that. But going forward, once we are out of this, I think we will need to look at exactly the very types of information that you're putting forward, you know, about simplicity, making sure that, you know, that the message and signposting people to the right place, to the right borough, council, whatever it is, because with the two-tier, it's not always clear who's doing what as well. And I think that's another thing that we will need to look at going forward. So simple, yes, but I do think we need a clean, clear strategy of how to signpost our customers going forward as to the services that we're delivering. And I just wanted to say that will be something hopefully we do pick up on going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Cam. And can we say, I mean, without the Surface Pro rollout and all the other things that have been done, the digital experience of this council and the digital offer to our customers, to our taxpayers, has been outstanding. And I think the digital team in particular have just adapted and sorted so well and got our message out there. We would have been absolutely lost had we not been on the pathway we were on. So well done, Cam, to you and your team for, you know, it's almost like the foresight with this digital technology. It's not perfect. We would all rather be meeting in a room together, but it's enabled us to continue, hasn't it? And to deliver for the people of Warwickshire, which is what we're here to do. So thank you very much to the team on that. Okay, there's no other indicated speakers. We have a recommendation that we comment on this. Well, I'm sure John's picked some comments up as we've run along through here. So hopefully we can pass those back and pass our thanks back to the customer experience team and keep up the good work. So are we happy to endorse that? Everyone happy with that? Yeah. Can see some nods. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So we move on to item number 10, any urgent business? I do not have any urgent business notified to me. So we're going to move into a private session, but before we do move into private session, while we are still sort of in a public session, can I express my thanks to everybody who's been involved with this committee over the last 12 months. It's the last meeting of the year. To our fire service, to our portfolio holders, to all of you as members, and particularly can I thank Judy, Sarah and Maggie and Parminder, my vice chair, and the three spokes. I have found chair and spokes meetings constructive. I hope we've had a broad spectrum of views that we've been able to pull together, and it's a genuine thank you to all of you for what you've done. It's made this an enjoyable experience for me for the past 12 months. I hope you've all enjoyed it as well. So thank you very much for your help, support, and for the hard work. And I think we should, as a committee, note our gratitude to all our emergency services, to the police, fire service, for all they have done, and our council officers for getting us through the last 12 months. It's a year none of us will want to repeat, I'm sure. Okay, so with that in mind,